Hey, welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I'm your host, Coach Zach. I'm here with Coach Jolie and Coach Natalie. And today we are talking about frequency versus intensity, which I think is very fitting for this time of year as people are thinking about getting started with a new fitness routine. But before we get into today's episode, we always like to give a shout out to a client of the week here at Legacy. And this week, I'd like to give a shout out to Miss Kathy Patullo, who went above and beyond. We had a member who got some vertigo, came down with some vertigo in the middle of their session and was not able to drive. And I was getting ready. I was like, okay, I'm going to drive you home. And Kathy was like, hey, I'm going that direction, and took her home. And so that's always just a nice thing, members taking care of each other. So I want to give some due recognition to Kathy, and greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yay, Kathy.
Very fitting for Kathy. She's kind of like the gym mom. She takes care of people.
She is like a gym mom, huh?
Yeah.
I think she even calls herself that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, I think this comes up a lot in initial consultations, where somebody comes in and they tell me that they want to start slow. They're like, I want to get started slow. I don't want to get, crushed. I need to build some momentum up. And in their mind, starting slow means starting infrequently. Once, maybe twice a week, coming in and working out. And that's how they're kind of thinking through their workout routine, at least initially. And they're always a little bit surprised when I have the opposite approach. Like, okay, hear me out on this. I think we should start off with like 4 times a week. And they're always like, huh. And I always think it's interesting because if I'm in their shoes, I'm kind of thinking that maybe they think it's like a sales pitch of me saying like, hey, you need to work out more frequently. But all we do is unlimited training, so it doesn't affect their price point at all, which helps when I am basically kind of explaining to them why. And so when it comes to, starting slow, I think that we need to make a distinction between frequency and intensity, because those are kind of the two things that matter. And the intensity is the thing that we really want to start slow on. Not necessarily the frequency. So, Jolie, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think when someone is starting, it's so important to build that momentum, and especially with that momentum comes the motivation, right? When we start any habit, allowing it to become a habit, allowing it to become a part of your daily routine, just getting into the gym 4 times a week, you're going to feel better. There's so much that changes in just mentally, physically when you start working out, that I think it's so important to make sure that you are able to make it.
I think I like you mentioned 2 things. One was motivation, and that's a very common, I guess, misconception, is people tend to think that it's like they need to get motivated in order to get started, but action leads to more motivation. So if somebody can just suck it up long enough to just get moving, it's like that's going to start snowballing and they're going to gain more momentum. And then the other thing that you mentioned was momentum. And I think that, with starting infrequently, if you're thinking about that, like, oh, I'm just going to start with twice a week, that's a really good way to just break your new routine before you even start. Like if you're training Tuesday, Thursday, let's say, you're going to go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday without exercising, without working out. It's going to be really, really hard for you to start looking forward to that workout on Tuesday. And then you're probably going to be a little bit sore from the workout on Tuesday. And then you're going to hate Wednesday. And then you're not going to want to go back on Thursday.
Right. Makes it easier to almost talk yourself out of it, I think.
It totally does. And then it's going to take way longer for you to start noticing the, benefits of working out. When, if you worked out 4 times in a week or over the course of 2 weeks, like you're going to notice some changes just from that. Like your energy levels are going to increase right away. That's a hormonal response from your cortisol. You're probably going to start sleeping a little bit better. Your metabolism is going to start accelerating. You're going to notice some differences in appetite. Like all of those things are going to be positive. You're probably not going to notice those if you're only like training twice a week.
Right.
Right. So, Natalie, I'll go to you on the intensity level. So help everybody kind of understand what we mean by like starting slow, but from an intensity level standpoint versus a frequency standpoint.
Of course. So I've had a professor in the past describe fitness kind of like a tube of toothpaste. So when you get a brand new tube of toothpaste and you open it up, you can squeeze from any part of the tube and get benefits out of it or get the toothpaste you need to brush your teeth. What gets tricky is as you use up all the toothpaste, the tube becomes empty and then you're squeezing it from the very bottom, trying to get any last bit out. And as you build your training age up over the years, over and over and over, that's where you end up. So you're already this strong, you've built up all of these training hours, your training age is a lot higher than when you first started. So it's not as easy to see the improvements, but by then you've built the habit and the routine of getting to the gym 4 days a week or however frequently you work out. But when you're first starting, I think it's extremely important to get as much out of that tube of toothpaste as you can. You're going to see the results. You're going to feel better, like we've already explained. And we're not going to have a new client come in here and make them max 1 rep bench press as heavy as they can and then tell them, see you later, come back next week, because nobody would show up next week.
Be too sore.
Right. We're going to work them through everything. Of course, you're going to be a little bit sore because it's a shock to the system, but the intensity does not need to be when you first start taking a hammer to that tube of toothpaste and getting everything out at once. A light squeeze, just a tiny squeeze of a brand new tube of toothpaste is going to get something out on your toothbrush. So, of course, we are going to take it slow. We're going to walk you through things. We're going to communicate through it all. But most importantly, even with lower intensity, just creating that routine, like Jolie said, and changing the way you look about your day. Like you wake up and you know that you're going to go to the gym at this hour is going to change maybe the way you eat throughout the day. I'm not going to have a burger for lunch because I'm going to the gym at 2, and I know that if I have a burger for lunch, I'm probably not going to feel the best when I'm trying to work out. So just creating that routine, building a schedule around when you're going to get to the gym is super important, and we're here to support you with that.
So I like this toothpaste.
I like that analogy.
The toothpaste analogy is you're saying all we got to do is give you a little squeeze, and we're going to get a lot of benefit from that. And so you don't need to crush the tube, and roll it up to get the last like bit out. And I think that's a really good kind of way of looking at it. Is, hey, less intensity, but more frequency. Like you're going to still squeeze the tube every day, but we don't have to squeeze as hard right at the beginning. It's a good analogy. I like your professor.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I didn't come up with that, but it was good. It made me think for sure.
But I think that, one to kind of go off of that or I guess say caution around that is, if you're going to start a routine and you're going to go to the gym, you shouldn't be doing the same things every single day. And so from an intensity standpoint, I guess that we also need to talk about like variety or variation in the program, because if you were to come in and do in commercial gyms where they just have that like line of machines and you just go and you just do every
Yes.
single machine in the line. Well, like if you went and did that 4 days in a row, then you're going to be really sore from that because you're working the exact same muscles. So what we do with a new client is we have it set up where it's like, okay, we're going to make sure that we're not doing a lot of volume. We're not doing a lot of weight. We're going to ease you into this, but we're going to make sure, like, if you come in Monday, we work these muscles. If you come in Tuesday, we work different muscles. And then let's say it's Thursday, Friday, it's like we might repeat the muscles we worked on Monday, and then we might repeat on Friday the muscles we worked on Tuesday. And so that way we're giving the body like enough time to heal between workouts, but we're also, there's enough frequency there that now we're starting to like make some adaptation or encourage some adaptation with the muscles. And then as we do that, then we can start squeezing the tube harder and harder, right? We can start making the intensity level harder and harder. And I think that that's really, kind of the key for somebody that's, hey, you're wanting to get started. You probably have, we're looking at the new year here. We're probably talking to people that have set New Year's fitness resolutions previous years and have not been able to accomplish that or stick with it. A lot of times just this initial approach can be wrong. And so I think that that's why people tend to fall off relatively quickly. And so the approach should be, hey, let's start building this in, like you were saying, schedule it, build it into your daily routine, but let's start slow and then kind of work up from there. So, Natalie, you mentioned the nutrition component, which I didn't think about, but that would obviously kind of, I think the frequency and establishing the routine from a workout standpoint is probably step one, and then seeing how that starts to trickle down to the diet would be kind of like step two, right? Because that's normally kind of a natural progression. People start working out, they start like moving a little bit better, and then they start thinking like, well, I'm not going to ruin this.
Exactly.
I'm going to start making some healthier changes with my diet. So would you think that that's the right way to go about it, is like, hey, establish the workout routine first, don't overwhelm yourself, and then we're just going to like see how far we get just from a trickle down standpoint, and then we can start focusing on the diet a little bit more once we have made sure we've solidified that workout routine.
Yeah, I think so. I think the nutrition, it almost comes secondary, but because you have already kind of established that new habit of getting to the gym, you are noticing, I would argue, you're almost noticing more how food is making you feel. Like Natalie, I think you used a burger as an example, right? Oh, I'm working out at 2:00 today. Do I want to have a burger for lunch, or maybe something?
Some In-N-Out.
Right, or maybe something with a little bit more protein, a cleaner carb, something that's going to help me have a little bit more energy during my workout and not feel so heavy in terms of like just feeling sluggish throughout your workout.
Yeah. I think that's the natural progression. And that's kind of what we do with our new members, is like, hey, step one, let's just focus on working out. And then step two, we'll start kind of picking at some things as far as the diet goes and start trying to correct, the bigger issues initially. And then, depending on how fine we want to get with the nutrition, we can go down that route. But I think the fastest way to failure is just to try to do everything all at once, and you just dive in. And then like, if you're going super intense on your workouts right out of the gate, you're either going to get burnt out because you're so sore that it's miserable to go, or you're going to get injured, and that's going to stop you from working out. So you definitely shouldn't take that approach. And then if you're like going all in on the workout piece and all in on the dietary piece, I think it's going to create some like binge type behaviors within a relatively short period of time. And then that binge behavior is going to pull you out, and you're going to undo from the binge, you're going to undo all the progress you made. So it's much better to start like from a slower standpoint. And I think the same thing like with the nutrition piece, the frequency versus intensity applies to that as well. It's like, hey, daily, let's start making some like minor changes, because like the toothpaste analogy, it's like we can make probably some pretty subtle changes and get a lot out of that, a lot of benefit out of that. And then as we kind of progress, it's like we can start squeezing a little bit harder from a nutritional standpoint. So start slow with both of those. I think that's our advice to you if you're just starting out, is a little bit more frequency, just lower intensity. Let's build momentum. And before you know it, I mean, from a workout standpoint, I think that like 6 months goes by really, really fast.
Yes.
like people tend to think like, oh, I could do a program for like 4 weeks. It's like, if 4 weeks you're barely like starting to hit, your stride, and then before you know it, like 6 months is gone, and you're like, oh, I just worked out for 6 months and I started to eat a little bit better. I'm feeling a little bit better, but it's still going to take time for you to continue to be able to work out at an intense level and get results. Like a lot, you don't lose weight overnight for sure. You don't get stronger and gain muscle overnight. It takes time. So, all right, guys, that's all we got for you. Hopefully this helps. We'll be back next week with more great stuff. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.